Welcome to the Fruitful Faith Women on Mission podcast. This podcast is created for purpose-driven women just like you who crave more. On the Fruitful Faith podcast, you can expect Christ-centered conversations that will help you to cultivate a life that you and He love. We'll be talking about topics that matter, topics that impact your everyday life. We'll talk about anything from how to transition with grace, to what to do when you're overwhelmed, to how to be content and joyful right where God's got you. It's going to be good. Let's dive on in. Hey, I'm Alexandra Cavill, certified Christian coach for purpose-driven women who crave more and the founder of Grace-Based Christian Coaching. So we're back again today for another episode in our goal-setting series. We've only actually got 3 more left, including today's episode. And we're going to be talking about the topic of career or function, if you will, if we're going to go with our F theme. So to get us started, there's a quote that I'd love to share to kick us off. And it says, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. It's one of those quotes that's definitely stuck with me over time. So kind of looking back, about 4 years into working in the corporate world, I remember vividly going to fill up my Tervis in the break room one afternoon. And as I was walking over there, just having this crushing feeling that I could not do this for more decades to come. It was heavy. And I just knew, in my heart, in my bones, that this was not right. And so I want to be clear that I understand that work doesn't always feel joy-filled, right? But truly, I believe that it can be so much sweeter than you imagine, really. So what I knew, I knew that I had to work, right? And I wanted to work, but it had to be different than how it was looking. So that sort of sparked this journey of getting curious about my giftings, my strengths, and what I could excel at. I think I had mentioned this in the first episode with y'all. Part of my story, so much was focusing on where I was lacking, what was missing, what wasn't good enough. And so this was big to start to consider, well, what are you good at? What comes easy? And what might be worth investing in? So that kind of takes us to the idea of a primary and a secondary calling. So I loved this thought. It just it was something I had personally learned about a couple of years ago. Maybe it's familiar. Maybe this will be new to you too. So a primary calling, that's something that all Christians have. Our primary calling is all the same. And it's simple, but simple isn't always easy. And so our primary calling is to love God, to love others, and to make disciples. That's something we are all called to do, regardless of the gifts we've been giving. And so that's essentially aligning with the Great Command and the Great Commission. So that's for all of us. And then our secondary calling, that's essentially when giftings, your strengths, things like that come into play. How are you uniquely created? That's more so your secondary calling. So I actually have a fantastic assessment that I can share with you guys if you're curious about it, if you want to send me a DM to @Grace-Based Christian Coaching on Instagram. So just a little something in case you want to learn more or dig more into this. And then a couple of other resources. I know a lot of my clients, and I would imagine a lot of the listeners of this podcast, enjoy resources. So if you're wanting to get curious a bit about, what are my strengths? How can I use them well? And just get really clear on that. When I was kind of going through this journey, I actually really liked, debatable. Some people love it, some people don't, but I found the Myers-Briggs assessment, the MBTI, was really helpful in regards to different career options. So there are 2 books. One is called Do What You Are, and then the other is called The Pathfinder. So those are excellent choices if you want to take a look at those. Another one, it's not specific as those texts are, but just kind of getting clear of God's story for you and how He's woven it and kind of what's to come, and what to do with everything He's given you thus far and what might be in the future. And that's a book, one of my probably top 3 to 5 favorites is Restless by Jenny Allen. And then another resource is actually Grace-Based Christian Coaching's signature program. It kind of dives into all of this in a really thoughtful and intentional way. So we'll kind of touch a little bit more on that later. But so, as per usual with the goal setting series, we'll go through some powerful coaching questions, and then I'll open up and share some of my current and past goals and ideas and inspiration around the topic. Okay, so to jump into some coaching questions, you might want to grab a pen and paper if you haven't already. So, as you think about career, you think about function, if you will, we'll start with a question. Where are you with work? So, kind of think on a 1 to 10 scale, where are you? What do you like about your job? What don't you love? So, where would you rate yourself? On a 1, you're just completely, absolutely in the wrong fit, or 10, you can't believe you're doing what you're doing and you couldn't imagine it being more amazing. So, where are you with work? 1 to 10 scale. And then kind of consider, like we mentioned, what do you love? What don't you love? And just really kind of digging into that and creating some space to do so. And then you might want to think about, are you still figuring things out? Are you not loving what you're doing, but doing fine? Are you in your sweet spot? Just how do you feel about that? How does that sit with you? And just making room to kind of consider those things, because you spend a lot of your time in your life in your career. So those are questions worth digging into. So another thought for you is, what if you got just as excited about your Mondays, or maybe even more excited about your Mondays than your Fridays? What if that was the life that you lived? So something to maybe think about, and really cause some powerful questions to come up for you. Another thought is, where do you want to see yourself professionally in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Where do you want to see yourself professionally in those milestones? And what do you need to do more of, or how do you need to pivot to actually make that happen? Because God can do big things, but there's also a good chance that those goals aren't going to happen by accident. So, getting really clear on that and then working backwards. What do you need to do to get there? Maybe it's taking a big risk. Maybe it's making small tweaks. Whatever it is, I just encourage you to make space to dig into that. It's going to be so worth it, and maybe one of the most powerful things that you've done in a while. Okay, so also mentioned there are some other resources to perhaps consider, and one is Grace-Based Christian Coaching Signature Program. So if you want to check this out a little bit more, you can do so by hopping onto the website. We've got a page for it, gracebaskedchristiancoaching.com/signature program. And it talks all about, so essentially, like I'd said at the beginning of the podcast, I was in a really searching place, probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Wasn't sure where I was going to go, what was next, and had to do a lot of deep internal work. And so this program is essentially taking everything that I've done, everything that I've learned, spent close to 10 years in the leadership development corporate space. There are a lot of powerful exercises and tools and techniques that I've learned from that time too. So sort of packaging this all into a 5-session program. It's a really sweet one, a really powerful one that's not only going to help with your career, but really sort of your life. It's sort of like a personal success blueprint, if you will. So we'll talk about things like your personal mission statement, vision statement, your ideal week, different priorities, getting really clear on those, getting clear on your obstacles, all sorts of things. It's just so much packaged in just so much short period of time. So you are going to get a lot out of it. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. If it sounds interesting, we'll get into gifts too and all that good stuff. So not only the what, but the how. So it's very practical too. So kind of 3 main 90-minute sessions, and then we'll have kind of quote regular coaching sessions, if we will. So we'll take all the content you learned and apply it. And then if you're already maybe doing your thing, whatever that is, and really looking to take it to the next level, something else you might want to check out is an article that I'd written a couple years back, but it's just as powerful as it was then. And it's called What I Learned from the First Year of My Side Hustle and How I Made It My Full-Time Gig. So you'll definitely want to check that out. It's got my top 15 takeaways from my first year in business. So from opening to when I made the decision to leave and go full time. So everything that went great and that I learned, and things that I wish I had done differently. So really, really great article if you're sort of in the place where you're curious about taking a leap yourself. Okay. And then, so my past and current ideas and goals for inspiration in regards to career. So sharing just a little bit about this, maybe it's helpful to kind of learn more about my background, maybe some of the different goals that I've had. If you see some of yourself in me, or just get different ideas and inspiration to kind of get your wheels turning too for what maybe would be next for you in regards to career. So, in the past, a few of mine, you might have heard, before all of this, before even human resources career, I actually was attending physician assistant school. So, that was a pretty big pivot going from PA school after a couple of weeks. It was just not the best fit for me personally, to getting my master's in HR development. So, that was a big one. PA school to my master's, to close to 10 years in corporate to coaching. So a lot of changes in a relatively short period of time. So maybe just even hearing that encourages you that, you too can take a left turn and it can work out and it can work out really, really well. So another thought here for you as a potential career goal is being more aware of the how you're feeling than just the what you're doing. So that was a really, really big one. I remember back in 2017, if you had looked back on everything that I had accomplished, I mean, launched the business, got several clients, did so much. And in the corporate world too, the personal job and taking over for a coworker at times. And it was just a big year. But when I was looking back, I just felt exhausted and wiped out and burnt out, and unhappy. And so that's just something to be aware of too, not just the what you're doing, but the how you're feeling while you do it, because that's so, so important too. Another thought to consider is, what is the impact with what you're doing? So this was huge. So sometimes, I don't know, if when you've got a lot on your plate, maybe you find yourself just going to the busy work because it's easy, because it's a quick check mark off the list, because it's comfortable. But comfortable doesn't always equal effective. So maybe for you, it's getting clear on starting with the high impact kind of work. And so that's something that definitely was eye opening for me when I'm going to spend my time. What is the return on investment of what I'm actually doing? It's really important. And then a couple of other things from a work perspective, have received my ACC, so I'm an associate certified coach, as well as my certified professional life coach certificate I'd received from Christian Coach Institute. I've also got one from the International Coaching Federation, so that's really exciting. It's kind of, when you think of doctors, if you will, they've got their board certification. The ICF sort of certifies all coaches across the board. So that was a big one for me personally that had happened. I think the next level is soon to come too, which is amazing. And then another big one was hiring. So if you're a business owner too, I mean, this is massive. This is something really, really big that I had done at the end of last year, hiring someone for marketing support, social media support, creating a video, helping with a rebrand, all sorts of things. And I'll just add that when you have other people on your team, in support of whatever your God given vision is, it's just so unbelievably energizing. You can run in your lane, they can run in their lanes. I would absolutely encourage you to do that if you can. Another one is this podcast. This was something I talked about, my husband encouraged me to do for quite a while. And hey, here it is. It's so fun to be able to talk with you guys in this way. And it's compared to some other avenues, like the blog and whatnot, good content on all of the different channels, if you will. But it seems like this has actually become the most popular one, which has been a lot of fun. And then being featured as podcast guest on other podcasts. So if you're kind of curious to hear a little bit more, and maybe just see some of my favorite podcasts too, really, you can hop on over to Grace-Based Christian Coaching's coaching tab, I believe it is, and then you'll see different resources. And then you can see the different podcasts that I've been featured on there. So that's fun. And then hosting workshops. So I don't know if you're aware, but Grace-Based Christian Coaching hosts a variety of workshops. One of our most popular one is called the Art of Gratitude. So to be able to connect with you all in the community in person whenever possible, it's just really, really special. So if that's something that you're curious about, whether we're both in Charlotte or you're not, and you'd like to do something virtually, that's definitely an option. And then getting an assessment certification too. So you might have heard of the Hogan assessment if you're in the corporate world. It's a leadership assessment. That was something that before I had left, I was able to become certified in and will use with my clients. And so I'd mentioned it's about leadership, but it also, which is kind of fascinating about the Hogan, it kind of looks at the dark side of things, if you will. They call it the HDS Hogan. I think it's development survey. So what are those characteristics of yours that you have to watch for that might be derailers for you? So that's an assessment we can definitely dig into through coaching too, if it's something you're interested in. But basically, all of these to share, this is just a quick highlight of some of the big career takeaways of the past couple of years. Hopefully, it's encouraging for you too that not only you probably have, but you can do really big things that are even greater than you might ask or imagine through God's support and through His strength. And then a couple of new ideas, at least personally on the horizon. Maybe you want to kind of borrow these for your goals too. But one is personally, when I think about career, I want to respond out of the person that I want to be rather than how I feel in the moment. So to kind of elaborate on that, it's really thinking, how would my best self act? What would my best self do in this certain situation? So maybe when it would be easy to react a certain way or to be angry or whatever it looks like for you personally, maybe you're like, my best self would see the big picture here. My best self would be more positive. They'd be calm under pressure. So that's a question that I've been asking myself and getting clear about. So maybe it's something you want to borrow too. Another one, I'm just considering some new offerings, especially during this unique time with the virus going on. So some of that looks like perhaps doing more virtual workshops. There are a couple webinars coming up, and perhaps it looks like there's an ebook that I've created. So looking forward to releasing that for you guys sometime soon. Perhaps it's a group coaching program or a membership site, different things like that. And then now, once we can get into bigger groups again, just considering speaking and what that could look like too. So those are a couple of my personal career goals. And I just would encourage you, well, what are yours? Maybe consider what's one thing that you're really proud about in the past a couple of years in regards to your career that you want to recognize and celebrate and thank God for, because it is a big deal. And it's so important to notice that and to kind of just get confidence in that as you move forward. And then think about, what are one or two things that you would really love to do differently? What are a couple of big goals that maybe feel a little bit scary to even think about that you're going to say aloud or write on paper? And then who are you going to share them with? What timeline are you going to give yourself for them? How is this going to change your life personally, your family's life, the people who you're going to serve through doing this, and just have so much fun sitting in that space and getting clear and dreaming about it. I would highly, highly encourage and recommend it. It's the best. We just spend so much time in our job, in our work, and to be able to get joy from it and use your gifts as you do it is a complete game changer. So kind of think to yourself, what is one thing that you'll take away and or do differently because of our conversation today? So think about that for a moment and make a commitment to yourself. So that essentially brings us through the topic of career function, finance. The topics of finance and fitness are up next. So a couple good ones to come. I just want to say again, as always, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Fruitful Faith Women on Mission podcast. And just if you love this episode, would love for you to head on over to iTunes and leave us a review because they're so helpful for other listeners to discover the podcast who might not have ever heard of it before. And then if you're curious, well, how do I actually do that? How do I leave a review? What you'll do is search for the Fruitful Faith Women on Mission podcast, click on that large image that appears up top and shows and then scroll all the way to the bottom, and then you can leave a review there. So when you think of a review, what to even say? What do you love? What's your favorite episode? How does the Fruitful Faith podcast encourage you? Things like that. And it also helps me to know more of what you love and would love to see more of on this podcast. So I'd love to hear what you're thinking and kind of what stands out most. So fun talking to you and cannot wait for next time. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fruitful Faith Women on Mission podcast. If you love this episode, I would love for you to subscribe. New episodes will automatically show up on your phone when you subscribe. It's super convenient and you'll make sure you never miss a thing. So excited to share more with you soon.